The scent of ash and rosemary clung to my sleeves as if the kitchen fire had stitched them there. I was scraping burned honey from a pan when the door slammed and Cassian, the Alpha King's second, filled the frame like a storm. "The Alpha King wants you," he said, voice flat as iron. 7 quiet words that set the whole scullery rattling. Ladles stopped clinking. Aprons froze mid-swish. Every Omega in the line lifted her head, eyes shining with caution and relief that it wasn't her. I kept my gaze on the pan. Invisible is safer, I'd learned. Be gray. Be steam. Be the shadow that cleans. "Elara," Cassian pressed, and my name sounded wrong in his mouth, like a promise scraped on a whetstone. "Now." I wiped my hands on my plain skirt, felt the familiar chill of the crescent charm at my throat, and nodded. No one moved to help. No one asked why a human kitchen girl would be summoned by an Alpha King whose temper could frost windows. The packed corridor swallowed us, stone ribs, torchlight pools, banners stitched with silver thread. 2 guards fell in behind us, boots drumming the same heartbeat. I dared a whisper. "Have I broken a law?" Cassian's knuckles tightened on his belt. "The king asks?" "You answer." His gaze flicked to my pendant, then away, as though it sparked. We climbed where servants never climbed, past tapestries of wolves running under the winter moon, past portraits of rulers who never needed crowns because power sat in their shoulders and throats. At the final landing stood doors carved with a forest and a river of stars. The guards exchanged a look I couldn't read, then wood groaned and the throne room opened like a wound. Voices hushed. Marble shone. High windows poured down a last spill of day. And there, on a chair grown from an old oak's heart, waited the Alpha King. Cale was younger than stories made him, older than fear deserved. No gilded cloak, only a black tunic stitched at the wrists with thread the color of moonsteel. He didn't move when I approached, but I felt the space change, like a storm deciding where to break. "Stop," he said without raising his voice. The word reached me like a hand closing around my ankle. I stopped. "Look at me, human!" I lifted my eyes. Amber met blue. I was not prepared for that steadiness. Monsters roar, kings calculate. "Name." "Elara, your majesty." "How long have you lived under my roof?" 3 years, I said. "In the kitchens." "Quietly." "Quietly," he echoed, tasting the word. "Yet 3 of my wolves were found last moon in places you frequent: pantry, drying room, herb court, each bearing the same carved sigil on the throat. A moon mark. No scent of a killer. No struggle. Only silence." Murmurs trembled against the walls. Cassian didn't look at me. Neither did the Omegas lining the pillars, eyes lowered, hands squeezed white. "I didn't." My voice cracked. "I would never harm a wolf." Cale's gaze didn't shift, but the room seemed to lean with him. "Everyone says what they are not. I am interested in what you are." He stood, and heat rolled from him like a banked forge breathed on. He came down the steps without hurry, scaled, measured. "You arrived half dead at my border the spring after the Great War, Elara. You offered work, obedience, silence. You have kept all 3. But I am a king, and silence interests me most." The guards flanked me, not cruel, only inevitable. "Hold her," Cale said softly. Gently. Fingers like iron on my arms, I was pulled 2 steps closer, until I could see, there, hidden in the embroidery at his cuffs, the same crescent and star pattern as my pendant. My stomach lurched. "The moon oath will clear this," a counselor said. "Blood truth. No more whispers." Cale tilted his head, listening to my heartbeat the way wolves do. "Perhaps," he murmured, and in the hush a new fear bloomed, not of prison, but of being seen. "Take her to the east cell. Give her food, light, and time." His eyes didn't leave mine. "Tomorrow, kitchen girl, you will tell me why your shadow fits these desks so well." The guards turned me. The doors sighed. Somewhere, a bell marked the last of daylight. I clutched the pendant under my collarbone until the edges bit skin, a pain bright enough to anchor me. "Always be steady, My mother had whispered once, when the world was falling. Even when you are not. Tonight I would try. This cell was a monk's room with better blankets, stone walls brushed with lime, a narrow bed, a tall clay jug sweating cool water, a slit window where the moon would find me when it rose. The key scraped, the door thudded, and the quiet settled like flour. I sat on the bed and tried not to see the sigil Cale had named, a simple crescent nested around a star, cut into flesh. I had scrubbed that symbol from bowls and boards. I had seen it stitched on old robes in the laundry. I had traced it in steam on winter mornings without realizing what my fingers were doing. A knock. The door opened without waiting. A woman in gray stepped in, older, the silver in her braid catching lamplight. She carried a tray and the tired patience of someone who had outlived 3 kings. "I am Mara," she said, setting down bread, cheese, a bowl of stew. "I keep the king's records and, when necessary, his prisoners alive." "Eat." "I'm not," I began, then saw the angle of her mouth and chose a different lie. "Thank you." She poured tea. "You've caused talk, Elara." She watched steam rise. "Talk is tinder. The right breath will make a blaze." "I didn't carve anyone," I said, and the word carve felt sick in my mouth. "I sort herbs. I mend nets. I wake before the ovens and sleep after the floors are washed. I am nothing in this place." Mara's eyes were the blue of old glass. "Nothing rarely draws a king's gaze." She looked, precisely, at my pendant. "Where did you get that?" "My mother's," I said. Truth tastes different than lies. It goes down like clean water and sits heavy after. She said it was for steadiness. "And where is she?" "Gone," I said softly. The Great War didn't always leave bodies to bury. Sometimes it left air with teeth. "A long time." Mara nodded, as if that page matched the copy she held inside her head. "The moon oath has weight," she said. "If you are innocent, it will hold you up. If you are not, the pack will not need a hangman. I know what it reveals." I blurted, too fast, too sharp. She paused. The lamp hummed. I wished I could pull the words back into my throat. "What do you believe it reveals?" Mara asked, voice suddenly very careful. "That a lie is a hot coal you cannot carry." I did not say, and that blood calls blood by its true name. I had crossed 3 winters learning to be ordinary. I had braided my hair tight until even the mirror forgot what it guessed. Mara rose, smoothing her skirt. "Steady is good," she said at the door. "But stone cracks in frost, willow bends and is still a tree. Decide which you are before dawn." She hesitated. "And Elara, eat. Fear makes cowards of stomachs. You will need your strength." She left me with stew and moonlight and the sound of my own breath trying to thread a rhythm through the tangle. I ate. Not because I was hungry, but because my hands needed something that wasn't shaking. Then I lay back, pendant warm from my palm, and counted heartbeats until the counting became dreaming. I stood, in the dream, not in a cell but beneath black pines. Snow whispered. The moon hung low, fat with power. A wolf stepped from shadow, fur as dark as Cale's hair, eyes like split honey, and pressed its nose to my wrist where a pulse answered. "Run," it seemed to say without moving its mouth. "Or finally turn." When I woke, the lamp had gone out. Dawn was rinsing the slit of sky. A key turned. "Up," a guard said, not cruel. "The king waits." I tied my hair with steady fingers that belonged to someone else. Cale did not receive me on the oak throne. Power performs on that stage. Questions feed elsewhere. They brought me to a study lined with books and maps pinned with brass, a fire set but not lit. Windows opened toward mountains cloudy with thaw, the air tasted of iron and pine. Cassian stood by the mantel like a shadow pretending to be a man. Mara waited with a ledger quill poised. 2 other counselors, Victor, scar on his jaw like a slash of chalk, and Celine, eyes that missed nothing and forgave less. Cale poured water into 2 cups and handed me one himself. "Drink." It was not a kindness, not a threat. It was a test to see if my hands shook. I drank. The water was cold enough to tell the truth. 3 wolves bore the moon mark, Kale said, not pacing. Kings who pace bleed needlessly. All high rank. All close to the crown. He didn't wear a crown. No Alpha King did. But I heard the metal in the word anyway. Why would a human kitchen maid be close to any of those places? Because I clean where others do not look, I said before fear could glue my tongue. Because I carry keys that do not matter to warriors, storeroom, drying loft, herb gate. Because no one notices a girl pushing a broom. Victor's mouth curled. Convenient. Useful, Celine corrected, without warmth. To me. Who taught you the names of the herbs no one uses unless it is winter or war? My mother, I said, again tasting clean water and the ache after. And the healer who took me in for a season on the way north. Mara's quill scratched. What did they smell like, those rooms, after the killings? She asked. I blinked. Cold, I said. Not winter cold. Metal cold. Like a wet knife lay in the sun. And something sweet, a breath only, candle honey, perhaps, but thinner, like a promise. I swallowed. And the mark was carved clean. No tearing. Whoever did it had a steady hand and no time to waste. Kale's eyes warmed a degree. Observant. I notice, I said. It slipped out like an apology. It's how I stay alive. Cashin finally spoke. The moon oath, he said, looking at Kale, not at me. If she refuses, that is its own answer. Kale set his cup aside. The oath reveals more than guilt, he said. Blood speaks. And not all truths belong to a council chamber. He watched me the way a wolf watches brush where a rabbit breathes. Do you refuse it, Elara? I could have kept pretending to be stone. Stone sinks. I could have bent like willow. Willow survives. My mother's voice traveled years to find me. Choose your ground before they choose it for you. I ask for a night, I said. Let me show you something before I swear anything under the moon. The room took a breath. Victor barked a laugh. Celine's brows pinched. Mara's quill paused. Cashin's hand, to his credit, did not go to his knife. Kale tilted his head. You would set your own terms with an Alpha King? No, I said, meeting his eyes. I would set my own terms with myself. If I am to put my name under the moon, I will know exactly what the moon will read. Silence decided whose child I was. Then Kale nodded once. You have until moonrise, he said. Cashin will escort you where you ask, within these walls. If you run, you will not get far. If you lie again, I will hear it. If you show me something true, I will consider it alongside the dead. It wasn't mercy. It was a hunt conducted at civil distance. Start with the herb court, I said before I could weigh wiser. And the old washing stairs. Mara's eyes sharpened. The washing stairs? Where the river's mouth used to be, I said, surprising myself. I wasn't sure how I knew, until I remembered every bucket I had emptied down a drain that sang like winter. Cashin led. I followed. Kings watched. Wolves listened through stone. The herb court wore spring like a new cloak, beds of sleeping mint, wolf's bane waking under straw hats, a stubborn row of winter onion lifting pale blades toward warm. The carved channels that carried rain to the barrel pool murmured, low and even. If you work long enough in a place, you hear how its bones fit. I went to the far wall where ivy pretended age and knelt, pressing palm to mortar. What are you? Cashin began. Listening, I said. For the throat of the house. Mara's quick pencil on slate. Victor's snort. Celine's silence. Kale didn't speak. He had the patience of a snowfield. I stood, stepped off 10 paces along the wall, knelt again. There, the sound shifted by a hair. I picked at the old line between 2 stones. It flaked under my nail, soft where it should have gone hard. Something had been patched here, not with a mason's pride but a servant's hurry. May I? I asked the wall, and then, may I? To Kale, because kings are also walls. He gave a short nod. Cashin handed me his knife, a gesture of confidence sharp enough to cut. I worked at the seam until a hand-sized square came free. Cold breathed in my face. Not wind. Depth. A chute, I said, peering into darkness that smelled of river and old soap. The washing stairs are below this, yes? Where the water used to run to the older baths? Mara and Celine exchanged the kind of look that nails a date to a memory. Before the new baths, Celine said. Easier to heat. The old sluice was sealed 12 winters ago. Not well, I said, getting to my feet. If someone wanted to move through the house unseen, avoiding scent trails and floors that remember footsteps, they would use cold stone and water breath. I gestured toward the barrel pool. And if they wanted to rinse a blade or hands without waking the pipes, they would use the sluice, not a basin. The water would take the truth down. Victor frowned into the opening. It's too narrow for a warrior. And too wide for a rat, I said. But just right for someone who knows how to turn shoulders. I slid my arm into the square, felt damp air lick my skin. Gooseflesh lifted. There's dust on the lip, but not on the notch beneath. Someone uses this, seldom but steady. Cashin crouched beside me, sniffed, and his nostrils flared with something like surprise. Not wolf, he said. Not only. Meadow in winter. Iron that doesn't rust. A sweetness I can't place. Cale's eyes came to my pendant. I tucked it deeper under my collar, ashamed of the reflex. He noticed that too. Seal it, Celine said. Guard every access. Post ears at the old baths. Cale didn't move. He looked at me as if he had already put me on a map. You said the washing stairs? He prompted. The lower door, I said. No one checks it because it's barred from the inside and the bar is heavy. But there's another way to lift a heavy thing without standing under it. Show me, Cale said, soft as fur over a trap. We went down. The old bath smelled of stone and memory. The river sang beneath floor slats like a rumor trying to become law. The heavy inner bar sat in its cradle across the water door, scarred oak, iron strap, the kind of thing 6 Omegas curse when it's time to move it. I knelt again, searching along the sill until I found 2 narrow grooves polished smooth by nothing a broom could reach. Rope, I said. From the sluice mouth to the bar's notch. Lift and drop. No scent. No prints. No witness. Only the sound of wood sighing. A sigh rolled through the room. Every wolf stilled. The bar rose a finger's width, lowered again, as if a giant tested sleep. Cashin was at the door in a blink, blade out, eyes gone sharp. Victor's hand crushed the air where a throat might be. From the sluice above came the faintest clap of cloth. A shadow withdrew. Cold water touched the stone like a whisper of teeth. Seal everything, Celine said, now a voice flint. Twine the doors with silver wire. Post warriors at the old vent and the new. Cale stared at the bar, then at me. There was no triumph in his face, only the grimness of being right that a hunt is happening in your hall. You notice, he said again. Good. I clean, I murmured, heart hammering. And I listen. The house tells on the living. His gaze dipped to the place the pendant pressed against my skin. What does your blood tell? He asked quietly, so only I heard. That I will not be your enemy, I said, just as quiet. Not today. By dusk, the sluice had been caged with silver wire that stung even my eyes to look at. The lower door wore chains and runes, and warriors posted at each end breathed like mountains considering weather. Word moved through the pack as word does, carried in shoulders, served with stew, folded into the corners of blankets. The Alliance delegates were arriving in slow processions, banners damp from the road, faces wary and shining. I saw southern colors once in a wash of blue and sand. Their alpha would come by morning, and rumor said he liked to ask questions smiling. Cale called council at twilight. I was not meant to stand at any king's right, but Cashin placed me there like furniture that had been decided upon. The round table gleamed. Torches threw honey on stone. I felt every gaze without meeting them. Our killer uses old bones in the house, Celine reported, voice stripped of any softness. The sluice, the stairs, the river throat. They wash their scent. They choose places this human frequents to make a picture we were meant to see. Victor's scar pulled. Then why is she here, Highness? Because she found what we did not, Kale said. No heat. Just the fact placed where it belonged. He turned the room with his eyes. The symbol carved on the dead is not a blade worker's flourish. It's a challenge. Crescent over star is the old sigil of parley under the moon. Someone uses our own laws to mock us. Mara laid a vellum scrap on the table, inked with that same simple curve cradling a bright point. This mark appears in 3 places in our records, she said. Treaties with the river clans from before my grandmother's time, robes worn by mediators in disputes between pacts, and, she hesitated, which I had not seen Mara do, in a list of children hidden during the war. Silence caught. Even the torches seemed to remember to be still. Kale's voice did not change. Read. Under parley, those of mixed lines shall be sheltered until judgment cools. Crescents mark them. Stars name them. Mara's mouth was a line. The page ends there. The rest of the ledger was burned. We keep a copy for gaps. But the names, she shook her head. Lost. Victor spat to the side, a controlled, ugly thing. Hybrids. Abominations. His eyes cut to me. And you wear a crescent like a dare. Victor, Kale said, a warning low and sufficient. He didn't look my way, and that mercy steadied me more than if he had. We hold law, not old hatred. The moon oath does not test purity. It tests truth. Celine tapped the vellum. Someone wants us tearing ourselves apart, she said. They marked our own with parley signs and let us wonder if the killer is a crescent child. Is it? Victor asked, unable not to. Kale did not answer him. He looked at me, not as a king looks at prey, but as a hunter looks at a path. At moonrise, he said, Elara will take the oath. My throat went tight. I had asked for a night, it had been given. Night had come, patient as a debt. I nodded once. I will answer truly, I said, and the words shook because truth is heavier than iron. When the council broke, the great hall was already filling for the watch. Wolves do not always change together, but they honor the moon with meat and music either way. Omegas moved like water through reeds, placing cups, calming pups, keeping the world from clicking out of its groove. Cashin lingered long enough to say, If you run, I will be ashamed for you. Which was either kindness or a soldier's way of avoiding goodbye. Mara pressed a warm bundle into my hands. Bread with salt and apple, she said. Eat between questions. I didn't ask what questions. I remembered the river under the floor and the way the bar had breathed. Somewhere in stone, someone clever had smiled. Kale found me at the edge of the crowd, not dressed as a king, no cloak, no filigree. Only a deep blue coat that made the amber in his eyes look like coin in dusk. Walk, he said. We slipped through bodies with the ease of water finding water. In the doorway to the court, he stopped. If I ask under the oath whether you killed my wolves, what will the moon say? That I did not. If I ask what you are? The salt bread went dry in my mouth. Ask me instead what I will be, I said. After tonight. His mouth almost smiled. Then the moon cleared a cloud, and every wolf in the yard lifted their faces as one. The moon oath circle was drawn in powdered chalk and crushed sage. Torches ringed it, set low so shadows could sit like elders at the edge. The pack gathered without jostle, the young behind, the old with their chins high, the warriors breathing like forges when the bellows pause. Delegates from 2 neighboring packs stood apart, courteous, curious, calculating. Somewhere, unseen but felt, the house listened through its bones. Mara read the law. Celine carried the shallow bowl in which water, honey, and the thinnest shaving of silver watched the moon. Kale stepped into the ring barefoot, and the hush deepened. Power likes the feel of earth. He cut his palm with a small, bright knife that had not tasted anything it did not mean to, and 3 drops of alpha blood found the bowl like stars returning to a story. Elara of no clan, he said, voice clear. Step forward. I did. The chalk crackled under my heel. The sage told the truth about my nerves. Kale held the bowl and did not look away as I cut my own skin. Human blood is darker than stories tell it. It knows secrets and pays for them. 3 drops fell and plumed, and the moon watched itself shiver in the metal kiss. Honey kept the surface smooth. Silver asked questions. Water carried answers. Under the moon and before the pack, Kale said. Do you swear to speak truth? I swear. Did you kill Victor's brother, Counselor Marius, and midwife Livia? No. The bowl did not cloud. The silver did not spit. The crowd's breath unwound a fraction. Have you knowledge of who did? No. The bowl held. Have you aided the one who did? No, I said, and the word cut clean, and relief like cold river water slid through my bones. Kale's eyes warmed a degree, then cooled again. What are you? He asked, gentler than the law needs. The bowl shivered. A murmur swept the circle, soft and sharp. Silver spidered a thread through the water like frost across a windowpane. It did not blacken, it did not spit, it sang a high note only wolves could hear. I felt it in my teeth. I am a girl who survived, I said, voice steadying on its own. I am an omega in labor and patience. I am human enough to blister and bleed. I lifted my chin a breath. And more. The bowl did not punish me for the shape of the answer. Law is stern about lies, not poetry. Kale nodded, a fraction. Will you stand under my protection while the killer hunts our halls? Yes. The water brightened, as if the moon approved of tidy sentences. Will you betray this pack? No. True. Easy. A wolf in the back let out a breath like a laugh. Will you tell me what you will be after tonight? I looked at the pendant under my collarbone and felt the chain like a line thrown to a drowning place. Visible, I said. The bowl cleared as if a wind moved in it. A howl rose, far field, near wood, then a dozen more answered, and the air changed its flavor as wolves set their bones at the moon's angle. Kale gave the bowl to Mara, and the old woman's hands did not shake. The oath holds, she said. She did not carve our dead. Relief moved through the crowd like warm bread passed down a table. But relief isn't safety. Even as Kale touched my cut with his thumb and I felt heat slip into steadiness, a bell rang from the east wing. 2 strokes, break, 2 strokes, guard signal for intrusion where there should be none. Cashin, Kale snapped, already moving. East baths. Cashin called from the dark, running. Warriors followed like thrown spears. I did not wait to be told. I lifted my skirt, left the circle, and ran toward the river hum, where old doors breathe if you listen hard enough and bars rise like sleep when a rope is sly. Behind me, the pack divided, half for the chase, half for the change. The moon made its own decisions above us, white and whole and not on anyone's side. Boots thundered over flagstones, a drum the old baths hadn't heard in years. Steam fingered the corridor, thin as breath on glass. The east door loomed ahead, the one with the bar like a sleeping giant, and already I smelled it, not wolf, not human. The meadow in winter Cashin had tasted at the sluice, threaded now with candle honey and the faint iron of fresh blood. Silver pricked my eyes though I saw none yet, the way a storm makes hair rise before the lightning. Back! A guard barked as I skidded into the arch. I ignored him and slid against the wall where cold lived. Stones remember, stones tell. The bar sat in its cradle, innocent. Chains coiled the hinges, runes still bright. But a rope lay like a shed skin on the floor, frayed end glistening damp. Someone had lifted the bar a finger's width, the way we'd seen earlier, and then abandoned the trick mid-pull, spooked, interrupted, or lured into haste. Cashin dropped to a knee by the rope, nostrils flaring. Same scent, he said. And he touched the wood. Oil. Polished to silence. They've practiced. Listen, I whispered. The river under the slats wasn't its usual even hymn. Something beat against the current, a metallic knock at uneven intervals, as if the water were carrying a secret that couldn't keep its rhythm. Cale arrived with 2 more warriors, bare-armed, the alpha's heat rolling from his skin like a quiet forge. His gaze took the room in one swallow. Report. Rope plan, Cassian said, indicating the grooves we'd found. Interrupted. Intruder still close. River says so. Seal the hall, Cale ordered. No one in or out who can't give me 3 answers. Where were you? Who saw you? And why do you smell like truth? He didn't have to tell me to move. He just looked, and I was already in motion. The washing stairs hugged the wall beyond the bath, narrow as a confession. I ran up them 2 at a time, counting 7 turn, 5 low lintel, mind your head, until I reached the ivy panel in the herb court. Silver wire webbed the sluice mouth, humming with a pressure that made my molars ache. No breach there. But on the path beyond, there. An absence. Leaves crushed where no leaves lay. A footprint that wasn't a footprint, toe light, heel light, the in-between of someone who put weight where wolves don't look, on edges, not centers. I followed the absences to the outer wall, to the postern gate no one uses unless storms drown the main. The gate was still barred, but the dust along its bottom edge wore a new smile, a crescent scraped thin where a tool had kissed it. Not a crowbar. A hook. Clever hands, careful shoulders. A shadow shifted to my right. I didn't think. I moved, dropping behind the rain barrel as something sliced the air where my neck had been. The hiss was almost beautiful. A small blade shivered into the barrel's rim and stood there, quivering, short, 6 inches, edge clean enough to ask questions of bone. Not steel. Not pure silver either. Something alloyed, tempered against old rules. I rolled, snatched the knife free before the barrel could complain, and came up to face the shadow. A figure stood where the herb beds bit the moonlight, hood low, coat bleached the pale of winter grass. Not big. Not small. My height, perhaps. The scent now was stronger, meadow, honey, iron, and a note I hated recognizing, the quiet sweetness of lavender steeped too long. I'd used it for sleep in the servants' wing. I'd spilled it once near my cot. For a week, the hall had smelled like a tired garden. Why our dead? I asked, blade down, words up. Why the moon mark? The figure tilted its head, as if surprised I spoke instead of screamed. A voice came, neither deep nor high, threaded with an accent the southern delegates carried when they forgot to smooth their tongues. Because kings forget law unless it bleeds. My stomach went cold. Southerner. Not only, the stranger said, and for a heartbeat the wind lifted the hood and I saw a mouth built for gentleness and eyes too light to be safe. Wolf there, and human, and something between like a bridge over water. Hybrid, my pulse said, naming kin the way blood does even when brains refuse. Behind us, boots. Elara! Cassian's shout cut the garden in 2. The stranger's eyes flicked past me. A choice cracked the air, attack, run, vanish. They threw a handful of powder at the silver web, sage, salt, something bitter, and the wire sang hard enough to make the torches gutter. When the note peaked, they moved through it like a fish through reeds, not breaking the strands but slipping the spaces between. Then they were in the sluice mouth, gone into the stone's throat. I lunged too late, catching only a thread of their coat, a pale strand that came away in my fingers with a hiss like silk. The web shuddered back into humming. Warriors poured into the court a breath after, blades bright, eyes bright. Cale's heat reached me before his hand did. Hurt? I shook my head, breath stringing my ribs tight. I opened my palm. The pale thread lay there, almost luminescent. Not wolf, I said. Not human. Like me. His gaze cut to the wire, to the sluice, to my hand. Then we were right about the mark, he said softly. And wrong about who would wear it. Security slammed shut around the east wing like a jaw. Runes glowed. Doors learned new obedience. The postern gate got a second bar and a guard with a face like winter. In the study, Mara spread the pale thread on black cloth while Declan, the spectacled lorekeeper, peered at its shimmer with a jeweler's intent. Plant fibers? He murmured. No. Animal? Not entirely. Woven with something that catches moonlight and spits torchlight. He touched it with a silver pin. The thread didn't blacken, it sang the same thin note the wire had sung. Declan flinched. Moonspun, he breathed. From the old border looms. Southerners used to weave it for rituals and parley cloaks. Celine's mouth tightened. Parley again. Cale stood behind my chair, not touching, but near enough that the alpha's steadiness warmed the space between shoulder blades where fear likes to nest. They said kings forget law unless it bleeds, he said, thoughtful rather than offended. Someone believes the southern pacts were wrong when I took the high seat. Someone, Victor growled, uses an Omega's ways, quiet paths, old doors, to shame a king. Mara lifted a brow. We taught our Omegas those paths, she said, so they could move without rousing warriors who sleep with knives. Her gaze flicked to me. And some learn more than we knew we were teaching. Declan tapped his notes. Moonspun is rare. The weavers were wiped out in the war or went south behind walls. If the intruder wears a cloak made of it, someone with rank supplied it or someone very clever stole it. Dominic. Cassion's distaste for the Southern Alpha did not require adjectives. Cale's reply was pure steel wrapped in silk. Accused with proof, not hunger. He turned to me. You asked the right question in the garden? His voice warmed by a breath. Ask it again in the throne room. You're going to confront him now? I asked. Confront? His mouth almost smiled. Invite. It is still night. Wolves will be running or watching. The Southern Alpha will be awake. Men like Dominic sleep only when someone else is losing. Alphas, Victor muttered, not quite under breath. Cale's eyes sparkled like a promise that could be humor if the room were safer. Bring him, he told Cassian. And 2 of his guard. Leave the rest in their wing. When we entered the throne room, the moon had settled in the high windows like a coin on an altar. Dominic came in with a measured stride and a cloak that betrayed nothing. 2 of his wolves flanked him, polite, bored, deadly. His gaze spidered over the room, landing on the pale thread in Mara's dish, then on me. Calculation flickered, then the mask smoothed. Alpha King, he said. A late hour for court. A late hour for thieves. Cale returned mildly. And for law. Dominic's eyes were lamps turned down to a safe glow. Are you accusing a guest of breaking your doors? I am inviting a guest to help me keep them closed, Cale said. He gestured toward the dish. This was left by an intruder who knows our bones too well. Moonspun, from Southern Looms. You can see why I thought of you. Dominic did not move closer, but something in his posture acknowledged the thread. The looms burned in the war. Not all, I said quietly. His gaze found me with a snap of annoyance that I had spoken without his leave. I didn't lower my eyes. We have evidence someone wears moonspun to move through our halls and carve our dead with a parley sign. That someone is not pure wolf or pure human. Abominations, one of his guards muttered, too soft for comfort, too loud for the room. Hybrids, I said, and the word did not break me. Crescent children. The same ones your southern records once swore to shelter until tempers cooled. Dominic's jaw set. Old law for old errors. Cale's voice cooled. Law does not rot when it is inconvenient. A fraction of temper cracked Dominic's mask, then he smoothed it with diplomat's speed. Even if I accepted your premise, why would such a creature target your counselors? To say the crown is illegitimate, I answered before silence could decide I was only furniture. To sow fear before the alliance convenes, to force a vote when wolves are already unsettled by winter lean and border raids. And to make the North howl for blood, hybrid blood, until parley is ash. And you know this how? Dominic asked, light as a knife on cloth. Because I spent 3 years listening to Omegas whisper the things warriors miss. I said. Because I can read what kitchens know. Because I was taught what fear does to law. By whom? His curiosity sharpened in a way that sent cold under my tongue. My mother, I said, and Cale's presence like a wall at my back steadied the part of me that wanted to run. Dominic's eyes dropped to my throat. Crescent, he noted, as if tallying a debt. Charming. Kale's smile did not reach his eyes. You will allow my warriors to search your wing, he said, soft, absolute. Your trunks, your cloaks, your boots. Not because I accuse you, but because you are a guest under my roof and I will not have anyone suggest I gave your shadow special mercy. Dominic's fingers flexed once against the edge of his cloak. Then he bowed just enough. Search, he said. You will find nothing. Cassian nodded to a runner. Orders flew down the hall like hawks. While we wait, Kale said, tell me, Alpha, how well do you keep your own law? If a Crescent child asked you for shelter now, this night, would you give it? Silence considered the question for him. The world is different, he said finally. Kings make worlds different, Kale returned, and at that Dominic's control faltered, just a breath, just enough to see the man who had held power 20 years brick by careful brick, and did not enjoy having a younger Alpha speak like thunder. The runner returned, breath tight, eyes carefully empty. Nothing, he said. Moonspun nowhere. Boots clean. Trunks clean. A beat. Crown nowhere. Every wolf in the room stilled. The Queen's silver crown, stolen earlier, had not found its way back to the box Mara had readied for the ceremony. Dominic's brow rose as if to say, there you see? Then it remains in my house, Kale said, and the words were not a concession, they were a promise. His hand fell to the back of my chair for a heartbeat. Warmth. Ground. And so does our killer. We did not sleep. The pack ran. Those who did not run guarded, watched, listened. I went where Cassian pointed and where my feet remembered sounds. Hallway by hallway, I traced the old bones, vents that spoke, drains that sighed, hinges that told the truth about how they liked to be touched. Dawn found us in the West Gallery, where portraits of dead kings stare into a future they can't help or haunt. The moon faded, the air changed, and with it something in the house eased, as if the predator who had borrowed its tunnels had gone to ground for daylight. Eat, Mara ordered me at last, pushing a cup of broth into my hands. I obeyed and felt my hands stop trying to shake themselves off my wrists. Kale appeared without fanfare, the Alpha's heat banked but present. He had not shifted. He had stayed in the hunt that wears a human face. It is a kind of leadership, crueler in the morning light when eyes ache and arguments dry to salt. We bait tonight, he said simply. Not with the crown, we never had it. With the story of the crown. He looked to Celine. Spread quiet word that the crown has been recovered and will be blessed in the ceremonial chamber at moonrise. Only council, only Omegas, only those who must. Celine nodded once, already calculating whose ears could carry a secret without dropping it. And the circle? We will draw two, Kale said, gaze sliding to me. One where we say the blessing will be. One where it will be. Decoy and heart. Mara murmured. Old trick. New stakes. Hybrids do not tire like wolves after a run. Declan cautioned softly. They can wait while we stumble. Then we don't stumble. Kale said, without heat, without apology. I set the cup down. They'll use water if they can, I said. And old air. And oatroom ladders the warriors never check because the rungs groan like scolding women. I pointed on the map. Post a listener here, above the ceremonial hall, where the vent that used to be a flue whispers. Post another in the linen long room. The wall there shares a spine with the trophy corridor. If the crown is to make a show, a thief might want antlers watching. Kale's mouth tipped, approval, not surprise. Cassian, make it so. He waited until the room emptied before he spoke to me alone. You held under the oath, he said. It wasn't a question. Not only because you did not carve our dead. Because I didn't help the one who did, I said. The rest burned like frost along my throat. But I know what it would reveal if he'd asked the other question bluntly. Not yet, he said, and the restraint was a mercy I hadn't expected. Not until the moon asks for something we cannot refuse. I rubbed the cut in my palm. The skin had already knit more than it should have. He saw me see it. He filed that away without comment. They looked at me as if I reminded them of someone, I said, remembering Dominic's brief, unguarded confusion. The intruder did too. The set of their shoulders. The way they placed weight. Like a dance I've almost learned. Cale's eyes found the pendant's line under my dress, then returned to my face. Names? I shook my head. Only ghosts. My village burned and everyone ran. In running you drop answers? His hand hovered at my shoulder, then fell. Tonight we catch answers, he said. Or force them to look us in the teeth. Moonrise came with a thin skin of cloud, as if the sky had dressed itself in old linen. The ceremonial chamber glowed, candles banked low, cushions lay for elders, the air tasting of sage and the metallic anticipation of silver. Word had gone out in the way word goes when it is meant to arrive in the right ears. The crown would be blessed at first bell. Wolves who had no reason to be near the west wing found reasons to be far away from it. The decoy circle sat plain as pride, chalk and rosemary and a pedestal draped in white. The true circle lay 3 chambers over, behind a door most think is a closet, bare stone, no flare, only law and breath. I stood with Cale and Celine in the closet, listening to the building's bones. Cashin waited 2 halls away with 6 wolves and a patience that could cut. Mara perched in the mezzanine vent with a bell rope in hand, ready to ring like a struck heart. Declan sat cross-legged in the trophy corridor, eyes half closed, counting the seconds between the river's sigh and the stone's reply. The first bell sounded clean. Somewhere, feet softened their tread. The second bell would be the Bates moment. Between them lay the quiet where thieves choose. Something shifted in the wall, not sound, not scent, but a pressure change, the way a summer door breathes when a storm turns. Cale's head tilted. Left, he breathed. I pressed ear to stone. There, cloth brushing old lime. A soft exhale of someone who believes in plans more than luck. Mara's bell rope twitched, one warning pulse. The second bell began to rise, a clear note, and with it a shadow slid under the decoy door as if it had always lived there. Not the intruder alone, 2 shapes, one leading, one a heartbeat behind. The leading figure moved with that same toe-heel grace, the moon-spun cloak's hem ghosting the floor. The second was smaller, hunched around something cradled beneath a shawl, the stolen crown, I thought, but the shape was wrong, it was too soft, too alive. The bell died mid-note. Cashin's hand came down. Warriors folded out of darkness with the ease of closing fingers. The door flung wide, and the moon-spun figure didn't run. They stepped forward into the circle and lifted empty hands, palms out, as if entering an ancient negotiation. Their hood fell, and a face like a reflection of my fear looked back, cheekbones carved like hunger, eyes the pale of river ice. Hybrid, yes. Young, yes. And familiar in the way a story is when you finally remember how your mother told it. Elara of no clan, the intruder said, voice steady. Do you know me? Cale's weight shifted beside me, not touching, a wall poised to become a door if I asked. My mouth was dry as old bread. I know your walk, I said, the truth choosing me. I know your hands. I know you from a night of smoke when a cellar door stuck and someone pulled me through and said, Run, little Crescent, run and don't look back. The young hybrid exhaled a laugh that broke. Then you know me, they said. Lyra. A name from my nightmares hit the room like a dropped bowl. The smaller figure lowered their shawl at the edge of the decoy circle, and the room learned a new quiet, the kind reserved for births and dooms. Not a crown. A pup. A silver-furred, black-muzzled pup asleep as only the innocent sleep, curled against Lyra's knee. Its ears were not wolf's alone. Its tiny wrist wore a thread of moon-spun. Celine's breath snagged. Victor swore softly, like a man who has cut himself on his own knife. Lyra lifted their chin. Partly under the moon, they said, and the crescent over star tattoo at their throat glowed faintly in the candlelight. By law your records still half remember. I bring a grievance and a proof. Will you listen, Alpha King? Or will you bleed this pup to keep your crown clean? Cale's jaw flexed once, and I felt the pack's weight tilt toward him like trees to a wind. He looked at me, not for permission but for truth. Listen, I said, and my voice did not shake. If we break parley, we are not a pack. We are teeth. Kale stepped into the circle. Speak, he told Lyra. But know this, every word will need blood to bear it. Mine if law demands. Yours if lies do. Lyra's eyes slid to mine and softened. Then I will speak, they said, hand on the small sleeping light between us. Because law forgot us, and forgetting is a kind of murder. And somewhere deep under the floor, the river changed its tune, as if an old channel had just remembered where it used to run. Lyra stroked the pups for once, slow, steady, like they feared this moment might wake something that couldn't be put back to sleep. Before the war, they began, voice low but carrying. The southern packs wove moonspun for one purpose only, parley. A crescent over a star meant neutrality. Blood paused, claws sheathed, truth spoken without fear. Hybrids, children of wolf and human, were marked with the crescent so no pack could claim or kill them. We were meant to be protected, until the war ended. Cashin's jaw worked as if chewing stone. War ended nothing. It only slowed the killing. Lyra nodded. Yes. After the Great War, humans blamed wolves. Wolves blamed humans. Hybrids were blamed by both. The Southern Alpha, Dominic's father, declared the Crescent Treaty dissolved. No more protection. No more parley. We were hunted for impurity. Some packs drowned children quietly to protect bloodlines. Others sold them to vampires for alliances. Their eyes flashed. Some fled north. My throat rasped. You fled with me. Lyra's gaze touched mine like a memory stepping back into its body. 3 of us escaped the burning. You, me, and Alaric. We were children with half-shifting bones and instincts too soft to survive. We made it to the river border, but only you crossed it. Their voice thinned. Alaric and I stayed south. We thought, maybe the north would keep the treaty. But when Cale took the high seat, the south said the Crescent Law was dead everywhere. Cale didn't flinch beneath the accusation. I never dissolved it. No, Lyra said, meeting his eyes. But you didn't revive it either. A hush tightened like a noose. Cale's silence wasn't guilt, it was calculation. He was weighing the truth and its cost. Celine stepped closer, eyes sharp as a ritual blade. You carved the moon mark on our dead. You broke neutral law to accuse us of neglect? I carved the mark, Lyra said. But not to kill. To warn. Victor scoffed. You slit 3 throats as a warning? Lyra's eyes burned. I did not kill them. I marked them after they were dead. The room stilled. Even the candles paused their sway. Cashin's brow furrowed. Explain. Lyra took a breath that trembled at the edges. Alaric did. He believed the treaty was dead, that hybrids needed a spark to force their existence into light. He thought war would be that spark. I thought I could change his path. I couldn't. He killed the first. I traced the crescent so the death would mean something. So wolves would see the forgotten law and be forced to speak its name again. Celine's voice went low. You disfigured corpses for politics. For survival. Lyra corrected. Alaric wanted the North and South at war, wolves tearing each other apart, while hybrids slipped through the cracks to freedom. I wanted parley restored. I wanted safety. I stole the crown because Alaric meant to kill Cale during the ceremony and placed the crown on a hybrid's head soaked in alpha blood. He meant to claim the moon's blessing for us through slaughter. My blood iced. Alaric is here? In this pack? Lyra nodded. He followed me north. He believes if Cale falls, the treaty ends forever, and hybrids rise in blood. Cale's expression didn't move, but the air shifted with him. Where is he now? Lyra looked down at the pup, its tiny flank rising and falling, unaware it was a reason wars begin. He thinks I'm delivering the crown to him tonight. He's waiting in the one place hybrids can rest without scent giving them away. My breath caught. I knew. The old river chamber. Lyra's eyelashes trembled. Under the house. Where the moon can't reach. He thinks the moon won't see the murder if it happens in the dark. Cale exhaled once, a controlled release of power rather than anger. You brought a pup into this? Lyra's voice shook, but they didn't look away. He's his. Alaric's. And mine. The shock rippled around the circle, hybrid parentage layered on hybrid crime. A child born of 2 Crescent bloodlines. A rarity beyond law. Mara sighed like someone who has read too many endings. Double Crescent. The old texts feared this. Not feared. Lyra whispered. Prophesied. When Crescent meets Crescent beneath one moon, a child born of both shall tilt the laws of wolves. Alaric believes this baby is that prophecy. He will kill kings to make space for her future. Cale's voice was quiet steel. And you? Lyra's eyes flicked to me, soft, pleading, breaking. I don't want a world built on corpses. I want a world that allows her to live without hiding. The pup yawned, tiny jaw opening into a soft squeak of wolf pup sound, and something else, a faint echo of my own heartbeat, as if blood recognized blood. Victor spat. Abomination. Cale turned his head. Victor, leave the circle. Victor froze, shock first, then fury, but he obeyed. Wolves obey an alpha even when they hate the command. Cale faced Lyra again. You violated our territory, defaced our dead, stole the crown. Lyra bowed their head. I stand for judgment. Only, let the pup live. Cale considered them, long and silent, the moon catching amber in his eyes. Judgment waits until truth is complete. We will face Alaric tonight. His gaze slid to me, steady, unyielding, yet this time asking, not ordering. Elara. You know him. You know the tunnels. I will not pursue this without you. Will you come? My pulse thrummed beneath my pendant. Childhood ghost. Blood truth. A pup with my same crescent pulse. A king who saw through my shadows. Yes, I said. We end this together. Lyra's breath broke with relief and fear. Cale extended his hand to me, not for ownership. For alliance. I took it. The moon overhead hummed as if a treaty older than any throne had just turned in its sleep. The moon climbed higher as we prepared to descend into the underground river chambers, territory few wolves dared to enter. Beneath the pack house ran a network of tunnels carved long before Cale's reign, older than written record. Wolves avoided them not out of superstition, but instinct. The river muted scent, muffled sound, and stripped power from their heightened senses. A place where wolf advantage faded, and hybrid truths sharpened. Cale stood at the map table, tracing the route with a fingertip. Celine and Cassian flanked him, both armored in darker, lighter gear meant for stealth, not ceremony. Mara worked silently at the back of the room, gathering salves, moon-silver chalk, and 2 vials of crushed wolfsbane. Lyra hovered near the hearth, the pup, now wrapped and sleeping, nestled against their chest. You're certain he'll be alone? Cassian asked, tone clipped. Lyra nodded. He trusts only shadows. And me. You brought this to our doorstep, Celine said, voice quiet but razor-edged. Remember that when you see what must be done. Lyra's throat bobbed, but they did not look away. If he sees Cale, he'll attack without listening. If he sees you armed, he'll assume betrayal. Let me go first. Let him see the crown. Let him think I kept my word. Cale folded the map. No. You won't face him alone. Elara goes in first, with you. My head snapped up. Me? You are the only tether to his sanity, Cale said. If any remains. If he sees you, the girl he remembers from before the night everything burned, he might hesitate long enough for us to reach him alive. But if he sees me, I murmured, he'll also see the crescent in me. Cale's gaze held mine. He already believes you're the key to his cause. Better to wield that truth than flee from it. There it was again, freedom and exposure bound together like twin edges of one blade. Celine stepped forward, offering me a thin chained circlet of silver. Wear this. It won't mask your scent entirely, But it will blur your aura. Keep your hybridity unreadable until you remove it. Kale's jaw tightened. And if removing it becomes the only way to stop him, you remove it. Do you understand, Elara? I swallowed. I do. Mara approached Lyra, hands gentle as she daubed a thin line of moon silver across the pup's forehead. This will keep her silent and unseen for a time. Keep her wrapped close to your skin so her heartbeat stays low. She cupped Lyra's chin, voice softening. If anything happens, run north, not south. Hybrids will be safer here than the lands you knew. Lyra blinked fast, gratitude and pain colliding in their eyes. I never thought I'd hear a wolf say that. I'm not just a wolf, Mara said. I am old enough to remember the true treaty. The words struck something deep, older than the fear in my bones. Kale moved then, slow, deliberate steps until he stood before me. He reached for the pendant resting against my collarbone, his fingers brushing the crescent moon and star. This was never meant to be a disguise, he said softly, only for me. It was a promise. Tonight, decide whether you keep it. My pulse thundered. He stepped back, his voice shifting to alpha command. We leave now. No blades drawn unless I give word. No shifting unless survival demands it. Stay behind Elara and Lyra until you hear my signal. Cashin strapped 2 curved daggers to his back. Signal being? Kale's amber eyes glinted. You'll know. Celine opened the concealed door behind the bookcase, ancient stone steps breathing cold air up the passage. A scent of river water and old earth rolled out, damp and metallic. Before descending, I turned to Lyra. If Alaric sees me, really sees me, he won't stop. You know that. Lyra's voice frayed to a whisper. Then don't let him see only the girl he lost. Show him the woman who survived. The thought terrified me more than the darkness below. We stepped into the stairwell, torches extinguished to keep our approach hidden. Only faint moonlight from the study followed us for a moment before the door closed, sealing us in shadow. As our feet found the first carved steps downward, Kale's hand brushed mine, not gripping, not guiding, but a silent anchor. You're not doing this alone, he murmured into the dark. I nodded, though I wasn't certain whether I needed the reassurance or feared how much I did. The air grew colder, thick with river mist, and somewhere far below, I heard the low roar of underground water, constant, hungry, waiting. A place where scent lies. Where sound bends. Where truth is the only weapon left. As we descended into the depths, one truth crystallized in my mind. Before the night ended, Alaric would face judgment. The crown would be reclaimed. And I would no longer be able to pretend I was merely human. The stair spat us into a vein of stone where the river sang low and endless. We moved as shadows do, Lyra and I in front, Kayla breathed behind, Cashin and Celine bracketing the dark with patience and knives. The tunnel narrowed, widened, bent. Old mortar glimmered where lime remembered moonlight. The air was cold enough to file breath into fog. Somewhere ahead, a lantern burned without flicker, the steady flame of a man who believes the world belongs to his plan. Alaric, Lyra called softly, the note balanced between warning and welcome. I have it. A figure lifted from the black like a thought you've tried not to think. He was older than the boy in my memory and exactly the same, angles honed by hunger, eyes too pale, too bright. Wolf in the way he owned the space, human in the ache around the mouth. Hybrid in the quiet between those truths. Elara, he said, wonder and accusation braided tight. Little Crescent. His gaze fell to the bundle at Lyra's chest, softened, returned to me like a question he meant to carve into the air. He made you a servant, he added, chin toward Kale. The Alpha King puts crescents in kitchens while he sits under a crown he stole. The crown you stole, Celine said evenly from the dark. He smiled, small and sad. Borrowed law to break law, he murmured, and the lantern showed a flash of silver, a circlet wrapped in cloth, moonlight asleep under linen. I will return it on a dead king's chest. Lyra stepped forward, palm up. Listen first. Parley under the river, Alaric. I invoked it. He shook his head, eyes on me. Treaties are stories the strong tell to keep their hands clean. They're also bridges, I said. We're standing in one. Then choose, he said softly. Wolf or human. You cannot be both and pretend either loves you. I choose our pup. Lyra breathed, and the word are widen every wall. And a future that isn't built on Kale's body. The river swallowed our silence and gave it back colder. Kale stepped into the lantern's circle, empty hands raised to show a king could be unarmed. The alpha's heat met the tunnel's chill and made steam of breath, pact of opposites. Alaric, he said, my name reshaped for another mouth. Your dead wore parley marks they did not earn. Your blade taught wolves to fear the very sign that might have saved you. Look what your lesson cost. Cost? Alaric's laugh cracked thin. 3 counselors for 1,000 Crescent children drowned by law that forgot them. Celine's weight shifted, Cassian's jaw set, Mara's voice, far behind us in memory, reminded me, decide whether you are stone or willow. I slipped the chain circlet off my neck. The tunnel felt it like a breath taken too fast. Scent changed. The air tilted. Alaric smelled me truthfully for the first time. He went very still. You hid. All this time. In their house. I survived. I said. In a world you wanted to burn because it did not love you loud enough. Because it loved us not at all. He snapped, and the lantern shook in his hand. I will make them see us. Blood is a language wolves read. Then read mine, Kale said, and his voice filled the tunnel without rising. He opened his palm. The cut from the moon oath had healed too quickly. It parted again at a thought. 3 drops fell to stone and steamed. Under the river and the moon that waits above it, I renew parley. I will restore the Crescent Treaty in the north. Stand down and I will swear it before every alpha at dawn. Alaric stared, and in that stare lived every winter we had not kept each other warm. Oaths are wood and rain, he whispered. You will forget us when the council growls. Kale's eyes found mine. Not asking. Trusting. He turned his wrist and pressed his blooded palm to the river-slick wall. The iron in it hissed. Then I bind it to the house, he said. Let stone remember. The stones remembered. The river paused, just a hair, as if listening to a story it had heard when it was young. Come home, I said, hand out, the chain circlet coiled like a question in my other palm. Help me build rather than burn. Alaric's face changed, and for a heartbeat I saw the boy who had shoved me through a cellar door. Then the wolf in him flinched toward the crown wrapped at his feet, and the human in him flinched toward the child at Lyra's heart, and the space between those flinches was where the knife lived. He moved, a blur of pale and old hurt. Kale moved with him, faster than the rule of men should allow, a dance written in older ink. Steel flashed only once, Cassian's blade striking Alaric's wrist to knock the knife out before it learned our names. The crown tumbled. Lyra caught it with the hand that wasn't holding a life. The pup whimpered, small sound, huge gravity. Alaric, I said, and I stepped between him and the king because stone must choose its river. If you strike him, the packs will write war into the dawn. Hybrids will drown in that ink. His eyes were wet and furious. So we drown quietly instead? Or we change the law that pours the water, I said. With Kale not over him. He lunged, not for Kale, not for me, but for the bundle at Lyra's chest. It was the worst choice and the truest. Cassian swore and would have been there, but wolves are slower in places where scent lies, and Lyra was only a parent with both hands full of tomorrow. I caught Alaric's forearm with both palms and felt strength wake where I had taught it to sleep, claws that live under skin, heat that curls along bone, a thread of the moon stitched into muscle. We locked, hybrid to hybrid, and the tunnel smelled of iron and lavender, and the sweet terrible thing that is choosing to live. Look at her, I gasped, because the pup had opened her eyes and they were not Alaric's anger or Lyra's fear, they were clearest morning. Look and tell me whether you want her first memory to be the sound of your knife. He did look. The blade he hadn't gotten wavered in air that didn't want it. Something in his chest cracked where I could hear it. His weight shifted away from the child, toward me, and I let go at the same instant Kale stepped in, catching a man rather than an enemy. The Alpha's grip is a kind of law. Alaric sagged into it with a sound like winter. Bind me, he said to Kale, hoarse, shaking. But keep the treaty. Kale nodded once. On stone and blood. We went up by another stair, slower, Kale holding Alaric with restraint, not humiliation, Lyra carrying the crown and the sleeping future, Cassian watching every shadow, Celine listening for the kind of silence that comes before regret. The study door opened to dawn, bruising the mountains. Mara was waiting with bandages and news. News comes in her hands folded like folded letters. The Southern Alpha knows, she said without preface. Dominic sent a messenger. If a crescent stands in the hall at dawn, he will call for a vote to censure your crown. Let him call, Kale said. We will teach him the words for mercy. We crossed the corridor that led to the ceremonial chamber. Wolves lined it not with spears but with attention. They saw Alaric, they saw Lyra, they saw the child. Reactions flickered: fear, pity, awe, disgust, like fish under ice. Victor stood at the far arch, jaw set. He stepped aside. For now, that was the shape of loyalty he could make. In the chamber, the decoy circle sat scuffed and empty. In the true room beyond, chalk and sage marked a ring that felt older than our feet. Kale took the crown from Lyra and set it on the pedestal with no flourish. Then he turned to the assembly gathering in ones and twos, counselors, omegas, envoys, men who love law even when it cuts. Before the alliance bell, he said, we hold parley. Dominic entered last, cloak like a verdict, eyes sliding over crescent marks with the predator's cold arithmetic. Alpha King, he drawled, gaze snagging on the bound hybrid at Kale's shoulder. I see your thief. You see a citizen under treaty, Kale answered. One who stands for judgment without slaughter. Your law, Dominic said. Not mine. Ours, I said, and my voice carried not because it was loud, but because it had stopped apologizing. Signed before the war, renewed now, witnessed by stone that does not belong to a single crown. Dominic looked at me as if measuring a problem for a knife. And what are you to speak in a hall of wolves? Hybrid, I said. Omega by choice. Advisor by proof. Parley bearer by blood. Crescent child grown into a woman who will not drown. I met his eyes. And the one who will testify that Alaric marked corpses but did not make them. A murmur swept the room like grass remembering wind. Celine set a ledger on the pedestal beside the crown, and opened to Mara's copied treaty page. The crescent over star ink there looked new and very, very old. Truth is a craft. We laid it piece by piece. Lyra spoke of nights south of the river where children vanished under the name of purity. Alaric spoke of anger sharp enough to become a plan and of the moment it failed, eyes meeting tiny eyes beneath the earth. Cassian swore to the rope at the sluice and the web of silver that sang. Celine read law. Mara read memory. I told the story of 3 children at a cellar door, and the 2 who didn't make it through, and I did not break when I said my own name under both moons, the one outside and the one pressed into silver under my skin. Dominic listened because power listens when it smells a tide. He tried to interrupt. Kale's glance pinned him to civility. He tried to sneer. Lyra lifted the pup, and sneers are smaller in the face of brand new breath. At dawn, Kale said, when words had made the room into a circle that didn't need chalk. I will call the alliance and swear the Crescent Treaty for the North. I will sponsor a registry of Crescent children, not to mark for culling, but to protect by law. I will bind our parley rooms to stone, not scroll. And I will hold Alaric for sentence for the deaths he did cause, blood for blood, tempered by truth. Dominic's mouth thinned. You expect me to accept hybrids at my borders? I expect you to remember your own law. Kale said, and there was old thunder in it. You may reject it. The river will remember that too. Silence weighed us all. Then Victor stepped forward, surprising his own boots. He looked at the pup as if looking into a well he hadn't believed in. He bowed, awkward, honest, first to Kale, then to Lyra. If a vote comes, he said roughly, I stand with our king. Not because I like it, but because I want to like what my sons live under. Something eased in the pack. Wolves are weather, the pressure changed. Alaric, Kale said. Do you accept judgment under law you tried to burn back into memory? Alaric's eyes found the pup, then me. I accept, he said, and it broke and mended something in the same breath. We ended it as cleanly as endings permit. The alliance bell tolled, and Kale swore the Crescent Treaty into the stone, palm against wall, voice low and absolute. Envoys watched law become a room you could touch. Dominic did not add his blood. He did not walk out either. Some wars begin with doors, some begin with a man standing very still and thinking dangerous thoughts. That would be for another winter. Sentence came with noon, Alaric bound to service, not pyres. He would carry the crown at Kale's side for a year of moons, visible, under guard, under law, washing graves, repairing doors, speaking in every village about the cost of carving truth into corpses. If he ran, the sentence would turn to death. He did not run. He asked to kiss his daughter's forehead and did so with a care that made even Victor look away. Lyra accepted exile from the south and home in the north until the alliance decided whether to share its courage. Mara took the pup for a night so Lyra could sleep like someone whose body has learned to unclench. Celine wrote a charter whose ink dried before the sun did. Cassian walked the sluice with silver wire in his hands and new mercy in his pocket. As for me, I stood in the ceremonial chamber when evening came, the crown back in its box, the chalk ring swept. Kale entered like a man who had put his heart out to be counted and found it returned with interest. He stopped an arm's length away. No throne. No court. Only breath. You chose, he said quietly. I did, I answered. Not wolf over human. Not human over wolf. I chose the bridge and the ones who cross it. He reached toward my pendant again, not to test, but to touch lightly, as if feeling whether the promise had warmed. Walk with me, Elara, he said. As advisor. As Omega by choice. As Crescent who will remind a king when kings forget. And if you forget? I asked, because love that doesn't question law becomes hunger. He smiled, small and real. Then you will make the stone remember. Outside, the moon rose on a cleaner night. Wolves ran without hunting each other. Someone sang in the kitchens, an old song that used to be a warning and was now a welcome. I thought of 3 children at a cellar door and a 4th asleep under Mara's careful watch, and I felt the bridge under my feet hold firm. The pack does not change at once. Old fear clings like damp. But the house had a new room in it where Parley lived, and law had a new line that bent toward mercy, and a king had given his blood to keep it. That is how worlds turn, by small degrees, by steady hands. I took Kale's offered hand, ally, not anchor, and together we stepped through the doorway, into a hall that would learn our names without needing them carved into anyone's skin.